Hey friend, it's episode 337. Welcome to the Keto Diet Podcast. I'm your host, Leanne Vogel. I'm also the best-selling author of The Keto Diet, The Keto Diet Cookbook, and Keto for Women. And today we are reviewing my DNA power results. I'm really excited about this. Our guest today, Dr. Lois, is going to be sharing her screen and showing you my results, showing other results of other people, so we can really understand what our DNA can tell us, how to act on it, what other testing we might need in order to fully understand what's happening in the present moment, and all these things. I can't wait to go through all of this stuff with you. I want to quickly thank our two sponsors for today's show. One is Thesis. They make nootropics, which are just fabulous. I'll include a link down below. And then also Eaton Hemp. Their CBD products are just amazing. And you'll find that I have a little bit of inflammation, propensity toward inflammation as it relates to my genes. And using Eaton Hemp CBD oil has really helped me with this inflammation. I know it's helped a whole bunch of other people, so I'll include links down below if you find that inflammation is an issue for you. Okay, without further ado, let's get to this interview. Hi, Dr. Lois. How are you?
I'm great, Leanne. So delighted to be back and excited to go through your DNA results today.
I am too. I've been waiting for this for what feels like months, and I'm just so pumped to share my DNA with every soul that watches this video or listens to the podcast.
Fantastic.
And so before we get started, you're going to share your screen. You're going to show us my results. A couple of questions I had for you. Why would somebody want to do this sort of thing? Why should we be testing our DNA? What sort of things can we action from this information?
Well, great place to start here, Leanne. And so what's really cool is that you now have DNA information available to help you make decisions about your long-term health. And so when you learn your DNA, it's your body's roadmap to health. It's where your body wants to go over time, and where the genes are weak is where you want to be avoiding things. It's kind of like the potholes in the road. How do you avoid that? But your DNA isn't your destiny. What's really important is that it's actually epigenetics tells your DNA how to express itself. And epigenetics is lifestyle. It's your diet, your exercise, sleep, stress, toxins, and actually even your mental well-being and state of health. So all of those things contribute to your genes deciding how they're going to express themselves and really how well you're going to be. And so what you want to do is there's just so much going on in our lives. We just have, we have so many good and bad foods, so many choices that we can make. And sometimes it's just hard to know which are the things that are most important for my body. And the great thing about getting your DNA results is you're going to get this roadmap, this green and red, that shows you where are your genes strong and where are they weak. And where they're weak, that's the stuff to avoid. And then you're just going to be able to, really live your best and your healthiest life by following and living according to your DNA. So what we're trying to do is just get that snapshot for you. What are the tips that you need in order to live your healthiest life?
And I think once we go through some of my results and we talk about how it relates to me and my health, because I do a lot of testing outside of DNA and I can speak to that, what things I've seen in other reports, in my lab work, in my Dutch test, my GI map, we'll pull all that together, my methylation status. I'm a total geek when it comes to these things. So we can really use that as an opportunity to kind of see my weakest points and see how that's actually resulting in my day-to-day life. So I love that we're able to share this. And for those who are like, wait, I want one of these reports, I want to do this, I'm going to include a link down below in the video. If you're watching this on the video, look for it there. Or if you are listening to the podcast, you can access it via the show notes. It's going to be healthfulpursuit.com/DNA. And if you use the code KDP, you're going to get $50 off your Total Power or Total Power Connect purchase. So just so you don't have major FOMO and you're like, how do I get one of these? I wanted to preface that before we get started. We'll review the lab work, or rather, I'm so used to saying review the lab work. We will review the DNA results and I'll ask a bunch of questions. Some questions came in specifically about how we action these. So we'll just go through everything. Are you ready?
Totally. It sounds so fun. And remember, these are lab results too. So it's actually, wonderfully sophisticated testing that used to cost like millions of dollars. And now, it's a few $100s to be able to get these results. And the other thing, just in conjunction as we talk to other tests, is you only do this test once. And it's kind of like the best test to have first, because it can kind of point you if you're having health issues where you might want to go to next. So that's what's another thing that's just real cool about it. So what I'm going to doing right now is I'm sharing the screen, and we've got Leanne's report up on Zoom for those who are watching there, but I'll talk to it for the podcast people who have it as well. So everybody gets a summary report, and this is really, there's over 200 pages worth of information, so there's a lot of information. We don't usually dive into the individual reports. We go through the summary, and we're just going to walk through this, Leanne, and occasionally I dive down a little bit deeper, but let's see what you've got. So there's a bit of information about, DNA testing, what the different tests are. And then just a reminder for people who are getting their tests is that, remember, green is good and red is where you've got variations. It doesn't mean that this is going to happen. It just means you've got genes that are weaker in that area. So that's what we're looking at. So here's your roadmap on the very first page on macronutrients. And Leanne has such a green result. Like, honestly, you have fantastic results here. I can see why you thrive on a keto diet, because you have fantastic fat genes, both for saturated and unsaturated fats. They're just really strong. It means your body can handle it. You actually have really good genes as well related to carbs, insulin, and cholesterols. So I have to say this is one of the best reports I've seen in a while. And while you have other listeners that might have done their DNA and shout out to some fantastic, I'm so excited actually, Leanne, about all the people who've been doing the test with you here. And so I've got Natasha from Michigan, Kelly from Georgia, Michelle from California, Jennifer from Utah, people even from overseas that are listening. So lots of you, shout out, and we can't wait for you to get your results and walk through it too. So it's super green, and you've got some great healthy genes here, and actually very low BMI genes. How does that fit with what you know about yourself and your body?
Yeah, I can kind of handle just about anything. I do know that I do need more protein. I feel completely flat and not okay when I don't have enough protein. And that's probably why eating a vegan diet for 7 years really didn't benefit me at all. The max protein I would get was about 30 grams. And so that makes a ton of sense to me. Another piece there, I guess, is the unsaturated to saturated. I know that a lot of people have issues with saturated fat, not myself, but I can imagine that, there are specific ladies that I know and clients that I have been working with who have some major issues with that saturated fat piece. But this really lines up to what I know about myself and the struggles that I have versus don't have. It looks pretty accurate to what I know to be true about my body.
Great. And so the one that's 50% red, and when it's 50% red, that generates an actual recommendation and gives you suggestions on what you should be doing. So yours is, in terms of the recommendations, that you should eat more protein and actually more frequent amounts of protein, because your body doesn't wants it to be more readily available. And so, you can still do intermittent fasting, but over the course of the day, if that's something a person does, you just want more digestible plant-based proteins, beans, lentils, peas, quinoa, fish, cottage cheese, eggs, protein powder. And I'm a big nuts, seeds person. So I love having, one of the trail mixes by my desk, because I need extra protein throughout the day, just for a few extra boosts of that protein when I can get it. So that's important for you. And just to show others, I just popped a couple of other examples up. Here's a test where somebody who has very red carbohydrates, not a great choice for them, in terms of their diet. You can see that can be quite red for that person. And another one where this person was on a keto diet, but they have very red diet saturated fat genes. So a dirty keto was really not right for them. And so I've seen people get quite ill because they're from not eating a clean keto. So just to say that you get a roadmap in terms of what it should look like for you. And the good news is on your macronutrients, you've got good options. So pleased to see that you've got good genes there.
Yay. And to that saturated fat piece, if anyone listening is looking at their dietary saturated fat and it looks like that report where they shouldn't be eating, or they have a challenge processing saturated fat, you can completely do a ketogenic diet without a lot of saturated fat. It's more of a Mediterranean thing. I've taken many of my clients through it. Don't freak out. It's okay. It just means that you have to be more mindful of the types of fats that you're eating. I'm very happy that I can have saturated fat because I love steak. So that would be really unfortunate.
Well, it is interesting because we'll see later you've got some B issues and variations, and that's probably linked to why your body does like to get more meat in it as well. So the next section we look at is food tolerances, and caffeine is half red for you. So you would be somebody I would say, you should really only do 1 cup of coffee at a time because it layers in your body and doesn't break down as well. How are you on caffeine?
Horrible. Don't make me take it. I can't do any, not even decaf coffee because it has even the littlest bit of caffeine. Nope, nope, nopey nopes.
Is okay. Wow. Okay. So that one fits for you. And then interesting, gluten it says 38%. I dug into the back genes on this one, and you've got the one that is highly linked to celiac. You don't have those genes are good. There's the second one that's a contributor where you're kind of 50-50 on it. And it's so you inherited one good and one poor. And so if you're having any gluten issues, that might be part of where some of that's coming from. And also gut health is a big piece about gluten. How does gluten work for you, Leanne?
Yeah, I went off gluten probably in 2005. So quite a long time. I thought perhaps I could handle it because I had tested my GI map and my anti-gliadin IG was like really low. So I incorporated just a little bit and then I got pretty sick. So I removed it. But I think you're right, Lois. It's really about gut health too. And that's something where I'm definitely weak. I've tested positive for parasites in December of 2020, thought I killed them, wasn't patient enough. So now I'm working in it again. So, if you have certain bugs, and you'd be surprised at how many people have parasites, this is just mind blowing. So if you have those little bugs, they can cause havoc on your gut. So if your gut, I feel like if my gut were balanced, I could probably handle a little bit of gluten. When I travel to Germany specifically, I can have a little bit and it doesn't affect me. So it really comes down to quality and your gut health. And I would agree with those results for sure.
Right. In Europe, they use different grains. They're ancient grains, and so most people, if they travel in Europe, who have troubles with gluten, do better there. North America, a lot of our grains have been adjusted, and it doesn't fit our gut as well. Also, if you've had rounds of antibiotics, it really starts to create a bit of a leaky gut, and grains are one of the first things that you really can have an impact on. So there can be many different reasons for it, but this test will show you: do you actually have the genes that don't support gluten? You've kind of got half of one that is probably contributing to stuff, but in the end, listen to your body. So this is just an indicator of where might there again be potholes or issues. Listen to your body. Now, you are one of those lucky ducks who has good lactose genes. Now, do you have dairy in your diet?
No way, Jose. Nopey nopes. Lactose, I haven't had since I was very little. Now it's interesting though. I feel like this is very much gut related. And it's very much in line with how I reacted to nightshades after reducing parasitic infections in my gut. I could handle a lot more nightshades. I haven't played around with dairy, but seeing this, I definitely want to try because I really think the reactions I'm getting with lactose and just dairy in general is gut related and not genetic related. So this is super encouraging to me. You might see me eat like a cheeseburger one day.
Well, and remember that the genetics is you genetically inherited, but you can also acquire lots of different things. And so again, based on our diets and our lifestyle, many things can be acquired. And so most people have more red results on the lactose. And so, that's just a good area to be reducing. So over at least 75% of people are not good on lactose and dairy and should be very careful with it. You may have an option, but listen to your body. Here we can see salt, sugar, not bad. All of your food tastes and preferences are fine. Interesting, quite red on smoking behavior. It often means that there's a little bit more of an addictive piece in there where somebody will, it's if you're going to smoke more. And so there's a gene that's related to that. And so it's a little bit compulsive potentially. Any sense on that one?
Addictive behavior is my middle name. So yes, completely. I was a smoker for many years and it was not just one cigarette a day. It was usually like 2 packs a day. So when I do things, I do them hard, and that makes sense. And I will never smoke again.
Wow. Okay. Well, I can't, it just always, it's so funny how the genes actually do predict the behavior exceptionally well. So we're on this, the last area of the diet power report now, which is vitamins. And you can see kind of a mix of red and green. Usually people will see about a third red. Yours is a little bit under that. But you can see vitamin A, vitamin B12 is probably, and omega-3s are the ones that stand out the most. You also have some C and D, and I do know on keto diet it's important to be sure you get enough C and D. And what this means is where it's red, you may not be your genes may not absorb it or break it down or utilize it as well as it could. And that's sometimes because in our ancient genetics they had too much of it and the body down regulated it. There's various reasons why you can have these variations. The important thing to know is on where you are today, what are the ones that you should be giving support? And so generally speaking, I'm a believer in a multivitamin. I believe that you should have probably B12 support because it showed up in a couple of other places. The fact that you're on a keto, or if you eat more meat, you're not going to have as big an issue. You probably feel better when you have some meat in your diet. So those are just, things to watch. And, for all of us in North America, getting more vitamin D is usually a good thing. It's good for immunity and so many things. And you can see your body likes to have some omega-3s as well. So, when you think about a vitamin regimen, what's important to you, Leanne?
Yeah, I guess the big question, and what I really want to focus on here, there are a lot of genetic businesses where you can upload your DNA results and they'll put together a supplement for you based on your results. What are your thoughts on that? Because at the same time of running this report, I also did a nutrient analysis report with my blood so I could understand like, where are my pain points? What do I need to supplement with? And what's happening right now, like the picture that's happening in my body right now. Vitamin A was perfect. B12 was a touch low, but pretty good. Vitamin D was fine. Vitamin C was low, like scurvy low, like so low. And I didn't test omegas. I wish I had. And in fact, my iron is low, and that's probably because when we have parasites, they eat up the iron. And so you don't want to supplement with iron. So that was interesting that it didn't show up. But I guess the big thing here is that I'm a little bit worried about people taking these results and then getting a supplement based on these, because they might not actually need these specific items. But if they're having issues delving deeper and understanding, is my vitamin B12 low? Perhaps I can test my B12, my MMA, and really understand what's going on with these results. Would you agree?
Well, people don't get sick from too many vitamins. Generally speaking, there's very small exceptions. We mostly are sick because of deficiency. And so if I was going to I believe err on taking more vitamins, you pee most of it out. There's only certain areas where you can, overload if your iron isn't working. So you can get a whole B's to iron to oxygen, cascade. Only time I don't like too much of it is when you can see an iron overload. You've got two little tiny half genes in the back there. That means that you don't want to iron overload your body potentially. And, really you want to go, where is your body today? So I'm a believer generally, because so many people are deficient in taking vitamins. We also, on DNA Power, we have a company called Vitamin Lab that kind of takes your formula and can make you a vitamin, because people don't like taking vitamins and you buy so many and we all have drawers full of them. And which ones do I take and which ones don't I take? This will give you a roadmap of which ones are more likely. And just because it's more expensive to be testing your blood all the time. So, but if you can, and the tests vary on which of these they can pick up well. So, I love when people have the option of invest your money in where might you have weakness, and then do a test like you did to see where's my body, so that I really do know today where I'm at. And then remembering that as time goes on, the red shows up more just because more is over, kind of piled onto you in your life. And so the younger you are, usually the more in balance you are, regardless of your genetics. The older you are, the more out of balance I see people.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
Great. Okay. So are you good on anything? So when we, on these summary pages, you'll then see here's the recommendations. So for Leanne, it says you should do a little bit more protein, limit your caffeine, here are some vitamins to consider. So vitamin A, B12, and omega were the three that were suggested for you. And we usually recommend food first. So I'm a big believer in food first. So eat the food that helps you, make sure you've got lean meat, fish, eggs. You can you could try dairy if it's feeling better. The nutritional yeast can be important depending on whether you've got, again, fungus or other things in your body. So you've got to watch other stuff. And if people have got weakness in B12, which is a very common issue, then methylated Bs can often be a better support for you.
Always methylated.
Yeah, it just is easier for it to absorb in the body.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so that's the diet. We're going to move now into health power. These are the background processes that support how your body is doing. So we're looking at detoxification. Pretty good genes here overall on the detoxification. And when we look at hormones, 2 of them are 50% red. And so that's something that over time for women, the redder I see it, the more I say you need to be careful with birth control or how you're managing additives in your body. Like if you have meats that have hormones and antibiotics in it, this is going to build up and overreact in your body. And so you just have to be a bit more careful. What have you seen with some of your clients, Leanne, and dealing with hormone health and how do you manage that?
Yeah. So when it comes to detoxification, guys, this page by far is probably, in my opinion, the most important in the report. I can't tell you how many women have issues with estrogen detoxification. Many women, as they age, will get put on testosterone pellets with poor metabolism of estrogens and poor elimination of estrogens. And what happens when we are taking testosterone, it can convert via the aromatase enzyme into estrogen. And so if you're lower in zinc, then that's going to start converting. And then this gets backed up and estrogen gets high. And without testing your saliva and urine through a Dutch test, you're not going to know that this is happening. And if one sees red, this stuff is really important to stay on top of. And I see this pattern a lot in myself included. The methylation detoxification I do see on my Dutch result, my methylation activity is low. That corresponds with my B12 and a couple other things that we'll be going through. My oxidative protection is not the best in phase 2 when it relates to my Dutch report. My androgen and estrogen biosynthesis, I also have a little bit of struggle there that I'm supporting, and the elimination of estrogen metabolites and that balance of the 2-OH, 4-OH, and 16-OH metabolites for our estrogen. This page is so important because when your detoxification is off, when your hormone health is imbalanced, when you're holding on to those estrogens, it's no good. And if you can't lose weight, this is where to look usually first for women, because 9 times out of 10, I see that there's some issue with detoxification. And when your liver isn't able to conjugate, that's the pairing up of these things that shouldn't be in your body. If you're unable to methylate, all these issues are going to cause, items to become imbalanced downstream. So page 9, guys, page 9, it's a good one.
Well, I agree 100% with everything you just said there, Leanne. It is just such a great snapshot of where you want to be looking and where you want to be careful. I agree when people's detox and hormones are off, that's the weight issues, the imbalance. So many things can go off. And there's a lot of things in our environment that throw these out, in addition to the fact that we might need some more support. So, and I do I'm also an advocate of doing the Dutch test. I do think, especially because we see so many women with hormone issues, and too often people are prescribed something. If you're low estrogen, they're prescribed more of something, but we haven't looked to see if your genetics if you're taking it in the right direction. And so I find that without this information, you have to be sure what you're rebalancing. It's not just taking more of this or more of that. Sometimes you've got to figure out how to get stuff out as well.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because a lot of women will get put on Biest or Triest and they'll think, well, this is bioidentical. It's great. But if your metabolites, if that metabolism of estrogens, that those last 3 items, if they are imbalanced and your body has a propensity toward these issues, putting on more estrogen is not going to fix it. And it might not be able to be detoxified properly. So yes.
Right.
completely.
It might mask the symptoms, or solve them
Mhm.
temporarily, but there's a price to be paid down the road, because what does your body do with all of this stuff building up inside of it? And then, to be honest, my fear is that you move into chronic diseases, or it can start leading towards cancers and things. So the whole thing is the body should be in balance. It's when it's out of balance is when you've got a problem. So if your body's out of balance, you have a tendency towards inflammatory response. And so a little bit more chronic disease oriented, but great to see, Leanne, you have very strong tumor inflammation genes, which means that reduce you've got it's just great cancer fighting genes. So that's great. It does other things as well, but that just says to me you want to, keep anti-inflammatory diets are useful at times if you think things are getting out of whack. But the good news is, even if things are out of balance, I'm a little bit less worried about cancer for you and your family in this case. So
Yeah.
then we get into the methylation panel at the end. You can see here this FUT2 gene is one that's all red. These are single genes, so they're either going to be green, half red, or all red, generally speaking. A little bit of support on your B12s is useful. Some of the methylation is working here. I did see on your folates, you've got a couple in there that are that could use a little bit of support. So it's just sort of really monitoring which ones are the ones that are really important for you. So yeah, you've got two methylation genes, the MTHFR genes, which are 50-50. And that's associated with about a 35% decrease in MTHFR activity, the methylation, and sometimes a higher need for folate, but you have to be careful about homocysteine levels. And so I'm not sure which of those things you test for. So it just means be more careful in those areas.
Yeah, my homocysteine is very good. I do check that often. But
Great.
yeah, if we do see high homocysteine, that's my number one thing is let's look at your methylation.
Yes, perfect. And these are good things to talk to your doctor about as well, because often, or your naturopath or your nutritionist. And what I love is when people like yourself, Leanne, who are in holistic health, you're looking at the full picture. You're trying to find all of the pieces that are needed in order to create a rounded picture of health for people. So nice job. So here are some of the recommendation. It is you want a diet rich in vitamin Bs. You might need a methylated B complex. Here's some other things, artichokes, berries, pecans, turmeric are good for supporting some of the detoxification. I'm reading some of these quickly. When you've got some of the red on the hormones, just make sure you don't have food that has got herbicides, pesticides, or antibiotics in it. That's just going to layer up in your body. Your body doesn't get rid of that as well. You need cleaner food to stay healthy. And, good antioxidants, vitamin B complex, other things, grass-fed meat, potentially dairy, Swiss chard, kale, watercress, spinach, dandelion. Those are all things to consider to support you. So there's lots of foods here. When you get the recommendations, I'll say to people, print these pages, circle this stuff up, and think about just use this stuff to go for your grocery list to say, add this more to my diet.
Yes, it's such a great idea. And everyone could benefit from a little bit of Swiss chard. So I approve.
Perfect. We're going into the next one here, which is around fitness. And it's sometimes it helps you kind of gear your workouts to get a better result, and to show you where there might be some watch out areas. Yours shows strongly on endurance over power and sprint. So generally speaking, if I see this profile, you're someone who likes, swinging, swimming, jogging, yoga, longer, steadier activity versus short power bursts and, heavy working out. And when I look at your muscle strength genes and a few on power, you're probably not, going to become a world-class bodybuilder. And if I've crushed your dreams, I'm sorry, but, really you're good with longer sets, and lighter weights work a bit better for you. And so if you're working with a trainer or doing your own workout, just doing more moderated activity actually suits your body type better. You've got good ligament strength, 50-50 on tendons, which means that if you do injure your tendons, the ones that were red in the back were around repair, you need to give yourself more repair time. And muscle strength, it just means you have to work harder for if you really want to build muscle, but everybody should be building strength and tone. And when you work out, you do repair reasonably well and reasonably quickly. So it just kind of gives you how much time do you need between workouts. when you're doing your exercise, your blood pressure, your energy availability, your energy metabolism, and oxygen uptake are all pretty good. They're kind of, a quarter to a third red. That's fine. That means you should be able to work out okay. If some of them are higher, then it sometimes means you should eat before a workout or just be a bit more careful in how you moderate it. So not too bad. And then when we look at the last set, oh man, I just love seeing this. Just so green on the blood sugar and insulin, stroke risk, and cardiovascular health. That's great. You really have got just, those genes are working in your favor just to keep heart disease at bay.
And I guess so if I were to eat a ton of sugar and eat a standard American diet, I would probably still have an issue with insulin. But you're saying that, insulin, glucose, blood sugar highs and lows. But generally speaking, if I were to eat a pretty good diet, I'm not going to have an issue with insulin. And I don't have that. I could probably get away with a little bit more than a person in the insulin page that has a bunch of red. Is that kind of how one could interpret that?
Absolutely. You're not somebody who's on the road to diabetes. I'll see, a third of people I'll see, they're on a diabetes risk and they have to be very careful. Yours, not a problem. You're okay with that. But as you just said, standard American diet, it doesn't matter how good your genes are, you're heading for cardiovascular, weight gain, other chronic disease issues. You'll just overload your organs and everything starts to be a problem. So, we all know everything in moderation. Yours, you can get away with a bit more than other people I see, but we all want to be healthy. And
off to McDonald's. No, I'm just kidding.
No, yeah. So you've got some of the recommendations there, which you can read, and then we're into the last one, which is your mental wellness. Now, you had your grandfather, you mentioned in your podcast, had Alzheimer's. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, he did. Very early onset in his 50s.
Wow. And so when I look at your genes, you have completely normal Alzheimer genes. It's the most common ones around. But it's interesting because it only takes one letter change to be now into the APOE genes. And we have quite a few articles on our website on APOE genes because that links to plaquing in the heart and the cardiovascular and the brain. And if you have that gene, you have to be very careful about eating a clean diet to avoid plaquing. It is completely manageable. So we treat Alzheimer's as a diet concern because we believe if you've got those genes that you can manage it. So your family should be reassured, certainly on what you've inherited, Leanne, that it's not a hereditary thing in terms of what you've inherited. It still might be somewhere in there, but a big contributor to Alzheimer's is heavy metals. And so if he was exposed at any point to a lot of chemicals or heavy metals or poor environments early on, some people it moves into the brain and that's where it shows up. And so, just to say there are other ways that can occur. The good news is you do not have the APOE genes that are at risk.
And the APOE genes, those are also involved in the saturated and unsaturated fat piece, correct?
Absolutely. So those show up on the LDL cholesterol side because what they do is they're a contributor to cholesterol, which then will be a contributor to how your body is managing some of the fats. So you then have to be a bit more careful. You really have to go to clean fats then. You don't want to risk the dirty fats. And so, yes, so you'll see it there and in the Alzheimer's report. You'll see yours is a little bit redder on concussion. It just says, should you have a concussion, just be really careful about your protocols. There is so many good protocols out there. Yours is not at a big risk because you don't have the Alzheimer's risk. If somebody has the APOE gene and you get a concussion, you'll see that they become very, very slow to recover and they need a lot more support. And there's some great like Dr. Amen clinics in the US are fantastic. There's Brain Tap is the great programs that just sort of work with the brain for anyone who's had troubles recovering from concussion. There are new things out there which are really supporting it. And so that's the reports. The net for you is you've got lots of versatility in the diets that you're on. You can do keto for sure. You definitely want to watch your Bs, your hormones and detox, as you know, are just areas to be careful of. And so now you've got your DNA roadmap.
Isn't that just so cool? And it validates so many things. I think oftentimes just having that big picture and very much like that roadmap. So as you're moving forward with your own eating style and you're trying to plan out your life, if 10 years down the road, you're like, I want to try a high carb diet, it's the rage. And you go back to your DNA results and it's like, no, 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 like you cannot handle the carbohydrates. It really sets that grounding attempt. So you know what works, what doesn't work, how to approach things moving forward. I think it's just so incredibly empowering to have that, like you said, a roadmap for your health.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, you also had people send in some questions, and one of the questions was around the hormones showing up red, and then the person did the Dutch test, but it shows that there wasn't a problem. Um, so I wanted to be sure we respond to that. So that is wonderful news. That means you are supporting your body properly, and it's not a problem. It's something you may want to keep monitoring over time. And so the younger you are, usually the healthier you are, the older, the more it can start to show up. But just want to say, it is, the DNA is just what your roadmap is, but it does not tell you where your body is today. That's the great a reason to use some of the other tests as well, just to validate. And I think you find that as well, Leanne.
Yes, I do. I think as it relate, if you're looking at your DNA power and you're going through everything, and it says that you have an issue with estrogen metabolization and just all those hormone pieces, you run a Dutch, it looks perfect. Usually there's a little bit of tweaking required, but for the specific human, their Dutch was pretty good. And so my response to that is, okay, well, you know that you might have a propensity to this, further down the line, or, she was eating a pretty clean diet, a lot of sulfur-based foods. She had a really good handle on her estrogen at that point. But if she is heating her food up with plastic, or she starts eating non-organic foods later on, or she goes traveling for 4 years, it might be good to test her Dutch again, check in with that, because she knows that that's the weakest link. And she was 29. And so she has a lot of time to go, in her 40s, 50s, she may see that estrogen adjusting, time that she's had around xenoestrogens and all those phytoestrogens and all the things that can adjust things. It's important to just check on that, and to just have that as part of your, maybe every couple of years, just do a Dutch, or every couple of years, check on your nutrient status, so that you're just keeping a pulse on the things that could become imbalanced because of your DNA.
Do you know, I think of all the things you can spend your money on, doing ongoing testing to monitor your health is probably the very, very best investment that you can make. Really, what's more important than your health? And too often, we spend our health gaining our wealth, and then have to spend our wealth getting back our health. So try and use a balance, especially the younger you are, or if you're 29. I just love hearing how healthy some of our younger men and women are, in terms of really focusing on that. If ever there was a time to focus on health, it's now. So this is just one tool. There's many tools out there. Getting coaching and advice from nutritionists like yourself, Leanne, I just think is so fantastic. So really, we're just all about take power over your health, and we just want people to be as healthy as they can.
Yeah, it's so incredibly true. It's so much easier just to spend maybe $1,000 every couple of years. If you keep a pulse on things, you can go a pretty long stretch and just keep check on things, and not be, it's so unfortunate working with women that said, oh, I'll do it next year. I'll do it next year. And now they're in their mid 50s, and it's just total chaos, that we have to clean up things, and it's going to take a couple of years to really get the support that they need. And if you're in your 20s, 30s, early 40s, and you're like, there're just a couple of things that I don't like, getting on it now and really understanding where your weak points are, what your body's telling you through some simple labs, is just invaluable. You'll spend so much more money on trying to fix the issue later. And it's a lot of stress on the body, and it's a lot of stress in your life and your loved ones and yourself, dealing with these health issues. So I couldn't agree with you more. And like I said at the beginning of our recording, if you have major FOMO and you want your own report and you want to see all these pieces, you can go to healthfulpursuit.com/DNA and use the coupon code KDP for $50 off your Total Power or Total Power Connect purchase. And Dr. Lois, thank you so much for coming on the show today, going through my results. I have to thank my mom and dad for great genes. And thank you.
Terrific. So enjoyed it. And we look forward to we're just so delighted all the people who have decided to do it as well. Be sure and send in your questions, and they'll all get consults as well with nutritionists. And if you find areas that are of an issue, remember Leanne's just fantastic. Your knowledge on this is just stunning. I love it, Leanne. So well done.
Oh, thank you. Oh gosh, I hope you really enjoyed today's episode. You can find out more using the links down below if you want to watch previous episodes on what we've done about DNA, what epigenetics is. I did an intro to this whole series if you're just totally lost and want to learn more. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I will see you again next week for another episode of the Keto Diet Podcast. Bye.